Ever notice how some places just feel wrong the second you pull off the highway? Your gut tightens. The gas station looks abandoned even though it's open. And every local you see has this look in their eyes that says one thing: you shouldn't have stopped here. America's got thousands of small towns scattered across its highways. Charming roadside America, right? Historic main streets, mom and pop diners, that classic Americana everyone dreams about. But here's what the tourism boards won't tell you. Some of these places aren't quaint, they're quietly terrifying. Not because of monsters or serial killers, because decades of economic devastation, institutional failure, and generational poverty have turned them into pressure cookers ready to blow. Today we're exposing 10 towns where even filling your tank feels like rolling the dice. Places where locals themselves will tell you straight up, don't stop, don't even slow down. And by the time we hit number 1, you'll understand why a pretty name and a clean highway exit can be the most dangerous lie of all. Let's get into it. Number 10, Bogalusa, Louisiana, where the water runs dark. Let's start in the deep south, in a place whose name literally means dark water, in the Choctaw language. And trust me, that translation couldn't be more accurate. Bogalusa sits tucked into the pine forests of southeastern Louisiana, less than an hour from Mississippi. On paper, it's just another small southern town. Population around 11,000. Trees everywhere. The kind of place that should be sleepy and peaceful. Instead, it's earned one of the grimmest nicknames in the entire South, Bogalusa. Yeah, let that sink in. Bogalusa used to be a company town built entirely around a massive paper mill. For decades, that mill was everything. It employed half the town, supported local businesses, kept money flowing through the community. But when the mill started downsizing in the 1990s and early 2000s, the entire economic foundation crumbled. What replaced it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Today, Bogalusa's poverty rate sits at 31%. That means nearly 1 in 3 people here are living below the poverty line. Per capita income barely scratches $20,000 a year. And the violent crime rate? Over 1,100 incidents per 100,000 residents. That's more than triple the national average. But here's what makes Bogalusa especially unnerving. It's not chaotic. It's not screaming with sirens or covered in graffiti. It's just tense, quiet. Gas stations close early or operate behind heavy security bars. At night, entire sections of town go completely dark because there's no economic reason to keep lights on. You pull in for gas here and you'll notice something immediately. No one lingers. People pump and leave fast. There's this unspoken understanding that you don't make eye contact, you don't chat, and you definitely don't wander into neighborhoods you don't know. Bogalusa isn't loud about its danger, it's silent about it. And that silence? That's the warning. Number 9, Tulia, Texas, when justice becomes the threat. Now let's head west to the Texas Panhandle. Wide open plains, endless sky, farmland stretching to the horizon. This is Tulia, population just under 5,000. At first glance, Tulia looks like every other small agricultural town in West Texas. But this place has a history so dark it made national news and became a case study in how badly the justice system can fail. In 1999, Tulia exploded onto the national stage when nearly 10% of its entire population was arrested in a single drug sting. We're talking 46 people arrested in one coordinated operation. The charges were serious. Conspiracy to distribute cocaine. Some people got sentences of 20, 60, even 90 years. Here's the kicker. Almost every single person arrested was black in a town that's overwhelmingly white. And the entire case rested on the testimony of one undercover officer. No recordings, no video, no physical evidence, no corroborating witnesses. Just one guy's word. For years, those convictions held. Families were destroyed. People lost their homes, their jobs, their freedom. Then the truth started coming out. The officer had a history of misconduct. Evidence was fabricated. Testimonies didn't add up. Eventually, the entire case collapsed. The state of Texas issued pardons. Millions in settlements were paid out. But by then, the damage was permanent. Today, Tulia is eerily quiet. Not because crime is out of control, but because trust never came back. This is a place where the very system designed to protect people became the weapon used against them. When you stop at a gas station in Tulia, you don't feel threatened by crime. You feel watched. You feel the weight of institutional suspicion. And locals will tell you, if you're passing through and you don't look like you belong, keep driving. Because in places like this, the danger isn't always wearing a mask. Sometimes it's wearing a badge. Number 8, Stillwell, Oklahoma, strawberry fields and violence. Stillwell calls itself the strawberry capital of the world. They've got a whole festival dedicated to it. Cute, right? Tourist brochures full of happy families picking fruit, smiling kids, wholesome small town vibes. Now let me give you the real numbers. Stillwell's violent crime rate in 2023 was over 5 times the national average. That's 1,400 violent incidents per 100,000 people. Poverty rate, over 40%. This is a town of fewer than 4,000 people that somehow manages to produce crime statistics that would make a mid-sized city blush. Stillwell sits in Adair County, one of the poorest regions in Oklahoma. It's plagued by underfunded law enforcement, rampant methamphetamine trafficking, and intergenerational gang activity that nobody wants to talk about publicly, but everyone knows exists. Drive through on a summer afternoon and you'll see American flags, front porches, dogs sleeping in the sun. Classic small town America. But check local Facebook groups and you'll see a very different story. Warnings. Constant warnings. Don't stop there. Avoid that gas station. Lock your doors if you're passing through. Stillwell is the perfect example of what happens when you gut social services, ignore economic decay, and let infrastructure collapse for decades. Crime doesn't just appear, it grows, and it grows fast. You want strawberries? Great. Buy them at a farmer's market 3 towns over. But if your GPS tries to route you through Stillwell and your tank is on empty, start praying you make it to the next exit. Number 7, Hamtramck, Michigan. Density, diversity, and danger. Hamtramck is one of the strangest places in America. It's a tiny city, just over 2 square miles, completely surrounded by Detroit. And within those 2 square miles, nearly 28,000 people are crammed together, making it one of the most densely populated cities in Michigan. Now, density alone isn't the problem. Plenty of dense cities are safe, but when you compress poverty, unemployment, cultural friction, and limited resources into that tight of a space, things get volatile. For decades, Hamtramck was defined by the auto industry. Immigrant workers, mostly Polish and Eastern European, built tight-knit communities around factory shifts, neighborhood bars, and Catholic churches. Then the factories started closing, jobs disappeared, the old community structures began to collapse. But here's where Hamtramck gets interesting. It didn't just die, it transformed. Today it's one of the most culturally diverse cities in the United States. Large Muslim populations from South Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa have moved in. Bengali, Arabic, and Urdu are spoken as commonly as English. That diversity has economic benefits, new businesses, new restaurants, a revitalized downtown. But it's also created friction. Old residents feel displaced. New residents face discrimination. Tensions simmer just below the surface. Hamtramck's overall crime rate sits near the national average, but its violent crime rate runs higher. Robberies, aggravated assaults, carjackings. It's not constant chaos, but it's present enough that locals know which streets to avoid and which gas stations to skip. You can get world-class kebabs at midnight in Hamtramck. You can hear 6 different languages in one grocery store, but you'll also instinctively lock your car doors, keep your head on a swivel, and make a mental note that maybe, just maybe, you should have stopped 2 exits ago. In Hamtramck, the rent might be cheap, but the stress tax of constantly watching your back, that's expensive. Number 6, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Beauty bruised beyond recognition. Pine Bluff sits along the Arkansas River, southeast of Little Rock, and if you catch it at the right time of day, with the sun setting over the water and the old historic buildings catching the light just right, it can look absolutely beautiful. But beauty doesn't pay the bills, and it definitely doesn't stop bullets. Pine Bluff was once one of Arkansas's most important industrial cities. Timber, agriculture, manufacturing. For decades, those industries built wealth, sustained families, created a thriving middle class. Then they left. And when they left, they didn't just take jobs, they took the entire economic foundation. Today, Pine Bluff's violent crime rate is approximately 1,650 incidents per 100,000 residents. That's nearly 5 times the national average. Population has dropped sharply. Poverty rate sits at 37%. And public safety budgets have been slashed so many times that police are stretched impossibly thin. Locals joke that sirens have replaced cicadas as the city's evening soundtrack. But it's not really a joke, it's a coping mechanism. In Pine Bluff, there's a firm consensus among residents about where not to walk, where not to stop, and especially where not to be after dark. Gas stations operate behind bulletproof glass. Convenience stores have armed security. And even during daylight hours, there's this palpable tension hanging in the air. You can stand by the Arkansas River at sunset and feel genuinely moved by the beauty. But when you hear that familiar distant siren, you remember where you are. This is beauty with a bruise, a place that once thrived, now struggling to survive. If you're driving through Arkansas and Pine Bluff shows up on your GPS, add 15 minutes to your route and go around. Your tank can wait. Number 5, Wilmington, Delaware. Glass towers hiding concrete danger. Let's talk about Wilmington, Delaware. On paper, this place should be thriving. It sits right between Philadelphia and Baltimore, smack in the middle of one of the wealthiest corridors in the entire United States. Wilmington is home to major banks, corporate headquarters, some of the most business-friendly tax laws in the country. Billions of dollars flow through this city every single day. But here's the thing about money flowing through a place. It doesn't always stop. It doesn't always stay. And in Wilmington, it definitely doesn't trickle down. Just a few blocks from gleaming glass office towers are neighborhoods that have been plagued by poverty, underfunded schools, and violent crime for decades. Despite its relatively small population, Wilmington's homicide rate has repeatedly ranked among the highest per capita in the nation. In 2023, Wilmington saw a homicide rate that puts it in the same conversation as cities 10 times its size. We're talking about a place where you can literally stand in the shadow of a billion-dollar banking headquarters and be less than a mile from streets where the violent crime rate triples the national average. The deception here is what makes Wilmington so dangerous. You pull off I-95 for gas, see the corporate logos, the clean highways, the professional signage, and you think, this is fine, this is safe. Then you take one wrong turn and suddenly you're in a completely different world. In Wilmington, wealth isn't just unequally distributed, it's actively walled off. The people who work in those glass towers, they commute in from the suburbs, they don't live here, they don't shop here, they don't invest here. Wilmington is proof that you can have billion-dollar businesses and third-world crime rates existing side by side. And when you stop for gas, that contrast becomes terrifyingly clear. The danger here isn't hidden in the woods or buried in rural isolation. It's baked directly into the concrete divide between who gets protected and who gets forgotten. Number 4, Bessemer, Alabama. Rusted dreams and active nightmares. If you want to see the physical ghost of the American dream, go to Bessemer, Alabama. This place wasn't just a city, it was a promise. In the early 1900s, Bessemer was booming. Iron and steel industry, factories running 24/7. Immigrants and black families came here looking for work, for stability, for a future. They called it the Marvel City. But when the steel industry collapsed, Bessemer didn't just decline, it hollowed out. Today the landscape is dominated by massive rusted industrial skeletons, old furnaces, empty factories, metal structures so huge they loom over residential neighborhoods like prehistoric monuments to a dead economy. And the crime? Bessemer regularly posts some of the highest per capita violent crime rates in the entire country. We're talking more than 33 violent incidents per 1,000 residents. That translates to roughly a 1 in 30 annual risk of being a victim of violent crime. Let that sink in. 1 in 30. Bessemer sits just southwest of Birmingham, close enough to a major metro to feel its pull, but far enough away to absorb all of its problems without any of its resources. Poverty hovers near 30%. The tax base has collapsed. Infrastructure is crumbling. Streets are full of potholes. Streetlights flicker or don't work at all. What makes Bessemer especially unsettling is the emptiness. This is a city built for a population many times larger than the one currently living there. So you get entire blocks of abandoned homes, vacant lots overgrown with weeds, and this overwhelming sense that you're walking through a place that's already died but doesn't know it yet. Violence here isn't a breaking news story, it's the low-frequency hum of daily life. It's as persistent and inevitable as the rust on those old steel furnaces. If you find yourself driving through Alabama and Bessemer pops up on your route, do yourself a favor. Keep driving. Those rusted monuments aren't just relics of the past. They're warnings about what happens when an entire economy disappears and nothing comes to replace it. Number 3, Oak Haven, Tennessee, logistics hub, human hell. Most people think of Memphis for its music, Beale Street, Graceland, BBQ that'll make you weep. But just a few miles south of all that culture and history is a neighborhood called Oak Haven. And this place is pure logistical hell. Oak Haven isn't a quaint residential area. It's a neighborhood literally trapped between the world's busiest cargo airport and a sprawling network of interstate truck routes. FedEx's global superhub sits right there. Planes take off and land 24/7. Trucks roll through constantly. But here's the thing. All that economic activity, it doesn't benefit the people who actually live there. Oak Haven is consistently ranked as one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Memphis, which is already one of the most violent cities in America. The violent crime rate doesn't just climb here, it spikes. Poverty sits at nearly 30%, and the infrastructure is designed for moving freight, not protecting people. But the site, transition from shipping hub to crime scene, happens in seconds. What makes Oak Haven so disturbing is its non-place energy. It's an endless grid of distribution centers, weed-choked vacant lots, and residential blocks where the air permanently smells like jet fuel and diesel exhaust. The floodlights from the cargo facilities never turn off, bathing everything in a harsh yellow glow. This is a place where the world's goods pass through at high speed, but the people living there are stuck in a cycle of generational neglect. Violence here feels mechanical. Robberies, carjackings, and assaults happen under the constant, deafening roar of planes overhead. If you pull off near the Memphis airport for gas, you'll notice something immediately. Nobody lingers. Gas stations are fortified with bulletproof glass and security cameras everywhere. The vibe is urgent, defensive, survivalist. In Oak Haven, you aren't just in a dangerous neighborhood. You're in the gears of a massive economic machine. That doesn't care if you get caught in the teeth. Keep your engine running. Keep your eyes on the mirrors. And whatever you do, don't wander. Number 2, Miami, Arizona, a name that lies. Miami, Arizona. When you hear that name, what do you think of? Beaches, right? Palm trees, ocean views, maybe Art Deco architecture and mojitos at sunset. Yeah, none of that exists here. Miami, Arizona sits in the high desert of eastern Arizona, surrounded by open-pit copper mines and steep, exposed hillsides. No beaches, no palm trees, just dust, heat, and economic uncertainty. This town exists because of mining. For over a century, copper extraction defined Miami. When copper prices were high, the town survived. When prices dropped, people left. It's a boom and bust cycle that's repeated so many times, the entire place feels stuck in economic limbo. Today, Miami has a population of around 1,800 people. The poverty rate sits at 32%. And while the violent crime rate isn't as extreme as some places on this list, the overall crime rate is high enough to make you uncomfortable. We're talking roughly 56.5 incidents per 1,000 residents. But Miami makes this list for a different reason. It's not just crime, it's disorientation. Decades of copper extraction have left behind environmental damage, contaminated soil, and a landscape that looks almost alien. The town is small, isolated, and struggling with limited economic diversity. Gas stations here don't feel unsafe in the traditional sense. They feel off, isolated, underused, like you've stepped into a place that's quietly dying and no one knows how to save it. Miami represents something more subtle than violence. It's the gap between a name and a reality. It's the reminder that branding, history, and hope don't always survive contact with economics. If you're driving through Arizona and your GPS says Miami, just know you're not getting what the name promises. You're getting dust, disappointment, and a town that's been hanging on by its fingernails for decades. Number 1, Taos, New Mexico. Beauty hiding systemic collapse. And here we are, number 1, the most dangerous stop on this entire list. And I'm guessing you didn't expect this one. Taos, New Mexico. Yeah, Taos, the artist colony, the spiritual retreat, the place featured in travel magazines with stunning photos of adobe architecture, mountain sunsets, and galleries full of expensive art. Taos is gorgeous, absolutely breathtaking. For generations, artists, writers, and seekers have flocked here, drawn by the light, the landscape, and the promise of a different kind of life. But that version of Taos, that's not the version most people live in. Per capita, Taos is one of the most violent small towns in the entire Southwest. The violent crime rate is roughly double the national average. Property crime, especially burglary and theft, is rampant. But what makes Taos truly dangerous isn't just the crime statistics. It's the infrastructure failure hidden behind all that beauty. Taos has spotty lighting, fragmented police jurisdiction, emergency response times that stretch dangerously thin because help is often miles away on winding mountain roads. The town is allergic to basic infrastructure improvements because maintaining its authentic aesthetic takes priority over practical safety measures. And beneath that picturesque surface is a deep, painful economic divide. Housing costs in Taos have skyrocketed. Wealthy outsiders and second homeowners have driven up prices to the point where longtime residents can't afford to live in the communities they grew up in. Meanwhile, much of the surrounding population lives without reliable infrastructure, no running water, no electricity, limited access to healthcare or consistent employment. Taos has one of the highest rates of property crime in New Mexico. Break-ins are so common that locals treat them like a seasonal event. You don't ask if your car will get broken into, you ask when. And here's the thing that makes Taos number 1 on this list: the deception, the gap between image and reality. You pull up to a gas station in Taos and everything looks perfect. Mountains in the background, adobe buildings, art galleries across the street. You think, this is paradise. But locals know better. They lock everything. They don't leave valuables in cars. They know which roads to avoid after dark. They understand that beauty doesn't equal safety. Taos is proof that even the most beautiful places can hide systems that no longer work for the people who call them home. When a town prioritizes its aesthetic over its stability, when it sells an image while ignoring the reality beneath it, the gaps get filled by desperation. You can pay luxury prices for a lifestyle that requires you to lock your doors every single time the sun goes down. That's Taos, stunning, spiritual, and deeply, quietly dangerous in ways that won't show up on a postcard. The bigger picture. So there you have it. 10 American towns where locals will tell you straight up, don't stop, not even for gas. These places aren't anomalies. They're not exceptions or outliers. They're mirrors. They reflect what happens when industry leaves and nothing replaces it, when justice fails and trust disappears, when wealth flows through a place but never stops long enough to help, when beauty becomes a brand that hides systemic neglect. These towns show the other side of America, not the land of opportunity and endless highways, but the forgotten communities, the broken promises, the places that got left behind when the economy moved on. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every single one of these towns was thriving once. They had jobs, infrastructure, hope. But when those things disappeared, society didn't step in to help. We just moved on, built new highways around them, stopped talking about them, let them become cautionary tales instead of recovery stories. So the next time you're on a road trip and you see a quiet town on the exit sign, remember this. Quiet isn't always peace. Sometimes quiet is just absence. The absence of opportunity. The absence of investment. The absence of anyone who still cares. And if locals are warning you not to stop, listen to them. Because they're not being rude or unwelcoming. They're trying to protect you from a reality they live with every single day. Stay safe out there. Keep your tank full. And remember, not all danger comes with warning signs. Some of it just comes with an exit ramp and a name you've never heard before.